The Galactic Council's chamber on Varn Prime was enormous. Towers of glass and metal stretched high above the floor, and light from distant stars reflected across the polished surfaces. Hundreds of alien delegates moved through the hall, their voices mixing into a hum of tension and expectation. Many species had come together to discuss peace, but the air was heavy with suspicion. Humans were late. Ambassador Laura Kane and Captain Ethan Brooks entered quietly, their uniforms clean and simple, a clear contrast to the colorful and strange garments of the alien diplomats. All eyes turned toward them. Some watched with curiosity, others with thinly veiled contempt. Laura walked with calm confidence. She had spent years negotiating with alien races, and she knew how fragile this peace could be. Ethan followed, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. He had fought in wars that had left him with scars no one could see. Together they represented humanity. Not just the planet Earth, but every colony, every city, every person who had built a life among the stars. Counselor Drekul of the Torvak Empire stepped forward. He was large, with green scales that glistened under the light. His voice boomed through the chamber. "Humans," he said, "you arrive late, as always. Perhaps you do not understand the seriousness of these talks." Laura bowed her head slightly. "Counselor Drekul, we understand perfectly. We have only been cautious, as is our way. We come here to discuss peace, not to be humiliated." Drekul snorted. "Peace? You have taken more than your share of resources. You have sent ships into our systems without permission. You have made promises you cannot keep. Now you come here to tell us what is fair?" A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates nodded at Drekul's words. Some quietly agreed with him. Others seemed unsure. Laura took a deep breath. "Humanity has acted to protect this galaxy when others hesitated," she said. "We have sent aid to starving worlds. We have defended planets from invasions. We have followed every treaty we signed, even when it cost us dearly. We ask only for respect and fairness in return." Drekul's eyes narrowed. "Respect? You will respect the Torvak Empire by handing over control of the Orion Passage. That is our demand. Without it, there will be no treaty." Laura's face remained calm. She had expected this. "The Orion Passage is a vital route for many species, not just yours. Humanity cannot surrender it. To do so would put millions of lives at risk. It is not a concession we can make." Other council members whispered among themselves. Laura could feel the tension growing. Drekul turned toward them, voice rising. "You see," he said, "even when offered peace, humans think only of themselves. They are reckless, selfish, and dangerous. Perhaps the galaxy would be better without them." Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Counselor Drekul, humanity does not act out of recklessness. We act with purpose. Every decision we make is for the safety of those we protect. We are not your enemy, but we will not be your subjects." A few of the alien delegates shifted in their seats, uncomfortable with Ethan's tone. Some were clearly offended. Laura raised a hand, signaling for calm. "The purpose of these talks is not to create enemies," she said. "It is to build understanding. But if this council believes it can demand tribute from humanity, then it has misunderstood our position entirely." There was silence for a long moment. Then Drekul slammed a clawed hand against the table. "Enough! You will sign under our terms, or you will face consequences." Laura looked around the hall. Her eyes met those of Counselor Vera, a diplomat from the peaceful Lithari species. Vera's expression was worried, and she whispered softly to her aides, shaking her head. Laura turned back to Drekul. "If that is your final word," she said clearly, "then humanity withdraws from these talks." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some delegates stared in shock. Others whispered quickly to one another. No one had expected the humans to leave so boldly. Drekul's eyes blazed with anger. "You cannot do this. You are needed here. You have no choice." Laura shook her head. "Choice is the essence of peace, Counselor. We choose to walk away rather than be forced into submission. Humanity will not be treated as a tool for others' ambitions." Ethan moved to her side. "We will return to our people," he said. "And we will not resume these talks until fairness and respect are on the table. That is our position. It is final." Some alien delegates tried to call them back. Voices rose. Shouts filled the chamber. But Laura and Ethan remained calm. They turned and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the vast hall as humans left the Galactic Council for the first time in decades. Outside, the halls were quieter. The council members stared after them, unsure of what had just happened. Dracul slammed his fist against the wall. They will return, he growled. They always do. We can wait them out. They will come crawling back. But back on Earth, the humans were not returning. Ambassador Kane and Captain Brooks reported to the United Terran Assembly. Their arrival was met with applause and relief. People had feared the Council might break humanity's will, but the delegation returned strong and unbroken. Laura addressed the Assembly. The Council has shown its true face. They see humanity not as partners, but as subjects.
They demand tribute instead of cooperation.
We will not comply. We will not kneel. We will focus on our own growth, our own safety, and the dignity of every human being in this galaxy. Ethan spoke next, his voice steady. We have given much already. Our people have served the galaxy with courage and wisdom. It is time the galaxy serves justice in return. We will not rush into peace that comes at the cost of our freedom. The Assembly voted unanimously to support the withdrawal from Council talks. Humanity would no longer supply trade routes, military support, or advisors unless true equality was offered. The galaxy, however, did not notice immediately. Many Council members believed humans would eventually return. They assumed the withdrawal was only a temporary gesture, a negotiation tactic. They did not understand that humans had grown patient, strong, and confident in their own power. Back on Varn Prime, the Council debated the human absence. Some argued for waiting, some for retaliation. Counselor Vera spoke cautiously. The humans are not weak. Their absence may hurt us more than we expect. We must consider the consequences carefully. Dracul scoffed. They will regret this. Humanity always comes back when it is convenient. We have only to wait. Meanwhile, Laura and Ethan coordinated with planetary governors and fleet commanders. Humanity's colonies began reinforcing their borders. Trade systems were reorganized under Earth's guidance. Every ship, every station, every colony received new instructions. They would operate independently, not under the Council's authority. As months passed, the Council started to notice subtle disruptions. Trade routes that had always depended on human ships slowed. Food and medicine shipments missed schedules. Minor conflicts that humans had previously helped mediate began escalating. The Torvak Empire sent urgent messages, demanding explanations for missing supplies. Other races pleaded for help as systems destabilized. The Council, for the first time, felt the quiet power of human absence. Back on Earth, Laura addressed her people. We act not out of anger or pride, she said. We act to protect ourselves and to remind the galaxy that humans are partners, not subjects. We will watch, we will wait, and we will teach by example. The galaxy will learn respect not by force, but by our dignity and unity. Ethan added, Our strength is not in weapons alone. It is in our unity, our ability to plan, and our refusal to bow to those who do not understand our worth. Let the Council see what happens when humanity walks away. Across the stars, humans were moving quietly. Colonies strengthened their fleets. New trade networks were built, and fleets once assigned to Council oversight now patrolled the stars independently. Every action sent a message. Humanity was not weak, and they would not be bullied. Back on Varn Prime, counselors whispered urgently. They are serious, Vera said quietly. We underestimated them. This may not be temporary. Their withdrawal could change everything. Dracul growled in frustration. They will return. They always do. We must be patient. They cannot survive without us. But he did not know that humanity had learned patience, and that their absence was teaching the galaxy a lesson it had never expected. And so, humanity stepped back from the Galactic Council. They left the grand halls, the flashing lights, and the endless debates behind. But their presence, even in absence, would soon shake the galaxy to its core. Peace talks were over, but the story of humanity's dignity and power had only just begun. The weeks after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council passed quietly at first, but the silence soon became loud. Trade routes that had always depended on human ships slowed and sometimes stopped completely. Worlds that relied on human medicine and food began to see shortages. Alien merchants whispered nervously as their supplies faltered. On Varn Prime, the Council met again. This time, the chamber felt different. The absence of humans left a strange emptiness. Many Council members looked uneasy. Some could not believe humanity would be serious. Others feared they already were. Counselor Dracul pounded his clawed hand against the table. They will return, he growled. No species can survive the galaxy without our guidance. Humans are stubborn, but they cannot last alone. Counselor Vera shook her head slowly. You do not understand. Humans do not act without purpose. Their withdrawal is not a mistake. It is deliberate. They are strong, patient, and willing to wait. Drakel's eyes narrowed. Patience is meaningless when hunger and war come knocking. Humans will need us. Vera's voice was calm but firm. Perhaps you underestimate them. You assume that their absence weakens them. But they are not dependent on us. They build, they plan, and they survive where others would fail. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Laura Kane and Captain Ethan Brooks worked tirelessly. They coordinated with governors, fleet commanders, and trade masters across human colonies. Every decision was made with care. Every move ensured humanity would not be vulnerable. Laura spoke to the United Terran Assembly in a meeting room filled with holographic maps and star charts. The Council believes humanity is weak. They think we will return because we cannot manage without them. They are wrong. We have prepared for this moment for decades. We will show the galaxy what humans can do when they act for themselves. Ethan stood beside her, his expression serious. We are not closing ourselves off. We are protecting ourselves. The galaxy needs humans, but humans do not need the Council. Every system, every colony, every fleet will now operate independently. We will not wait to be threatened or controlled. The Assembly erupted in applause. For years, humans had felt like minor players in the Council, forced to follow rules designed by aliens who did not always understand them. Now their leaders had taken a stand. Their independence was complete, and it sent a clear message. Humanity would no longer be bullied. Back in the Galactic Council, whispers of concern spread quickly. Delegates began to report disruptions. Trade routes that had depended on human ships were now blocked or delayed. Supplies of medicine, essential food, and technology were missing on planets far from Earth. Counselor Vera addressed the chamber. We did not anticipate the scale of their planning. They have replaced our trade systems with their own networks. Our fleets cannot move without human support. The galaxy is beginning to feel the impact of their absence. Counselor Drakel scoffed. Minor inconveniences. They will send envoys back soon. They cannot ignore the Council forever. Vera's voice was steady but carried a warning. They are not ignoring us out of pride. They are testing us. They want us to understand that humanity will not be treated as subjects. If we continue our arrogance, we will see even greater consequences. In the human colonies, the effects of independence were clear. Ships built for trade and transport now moved freely between worlds without Council oversight. Planets once dependent on the Council's decisions could now manage their own economies. Colonists who had felt trapped by political decisions now enjoyed new opportunities. Captain Ethan Brooks oversaw one of the first independent human fleets to patrol the outer systems. His crew was disciplined, loyal, and skilled. For months, they monitored alien movements, ensuring that no species took advantage of humanity's absence. One morning, while patrolling the Orin Belt, Ethan received a message from a minor world. Pirates from a nearby system had attacked a colony. The colonists had tried to call the Council for help, but no response came. Ethan immediately dispatched his fleet. Within hours, the pirates were captured, their ships disabled without a single human life lost. When news reached Earth, Ambassador Kane addressed the public. This is an example of why humanity must act for itself. The galaxy relied on us, but we cannot rely on the Council to act justly. We protect ourselves and others because it is right, not because we are asked to do so. The Galactic Council grew more uneasy by the day. Minor races who had once assumed that the Council's power was absolute began sending urgent messages. They begged for assistance, saying that the absence of human guidance had caused shortages, confusion, and small conflicts. Council meetings became chaotic. Delegates argued, blamed one another, and tried to find solutions. Drakel's face turned red with frustration. We cannot act. Their withdrawal is causing disaster. Every system they once served is now unstable. Vera tried to calm the chamber. This is not chaos. This is a lesson. The galaxy assumed that humanity would comply because it was convenient. Humans never agreed to that. They are independent, and their absence exposes how reliant we all were on their skill and foresight. Alien citizens also noticed. Merchants, traders, and travelers began defecting to human-controlled systems. They sought stability, order, and fair trade. In the past, human systems had been viewed as distant or overly strict. Now they were models of efficiency and fairness. In one trading hub, a group of aliens from several species gathered, discussing the human withdrawal. I did not think they could manage without us, said a small blue-skinned delegate. But their fleets are organized. Their trade routes work. Their colonies are protected. We underestimated them. Another spoke, a tall, thin alien with silver hair. It is not just organization. They have principles. They act for justice and fairness. They do not bow to threats or demands. That is something we cannot ignore. Back on Earth, Laura and Ethan watched the galaxy carefully. They had not intended to create disruption, but they knew the Council needed to learn a lesson. Patience, discipline, and careful planning had turned the human withdrawal into a demonstration of strength. One evening, as Earth rotated slowly beneath the stars, Ethan spoke quietly to Laura. The Council is panicking and they do not understand why. They assumed humans were weak. They assumed absence would force us back. But we are not weak, and they are learning too late that we never needed them as much as they thought. Laura nodded. It is not revenge. It is respect. The galaxy must learn that humanity is not a tool or a subject. We can be partners, allies, friends, but only if treated fairly. Their fleets continued to patrol the outer systems. Human ships now carried supplies to worlds that had never asked for help before, quietly proving that humans could act as protectors without the Council's orders. Colonists trained for self-defense, trade, and diplomacy. Education systems spread across planets teaching history, science, and diplomacy, all without the interference of Council mandates. Messages from the Council grew more urgent. Delegates tried to reopen channels, offering new deals, special agreements, and concessions. But Laura and Ethan were cautious. Humanity would negotiate, but only on equal terms, with guarantees of respect and fairness. Councillor Dracul called a special session. His voice shook with frustration. We offered peace. We demanded only what is reasonable. They are arrogant, and they punish us for no reason. Vera sighed. It is not arrogance. It is principle. Humanity's withdrawal shows us what we failed to see before, that we treated them as subjects, not equals. They are patient, organized, and capable. Their absence is not a mistake. It is a lesson. As weeks became months, the impact grew. Systems previously dependent on human engineering began to fail slowly, while human-controlled systems flourished. Trade routes stabilized under human oversight. Defense fleets operated independently, ensuring security for colonists and minor races alike. News of human success spread across the galaxy. Alien civilizations that once mocked humans began to reconsider their assumptions. Stories of human fleets defending helpless worlds, of colonies thriving under fair trade, and of organized, disciplined diplomacy reached every corner of Council space. On Varn Prime, delegates whispered and argued. Perhaps we were wrong, said one. They are not to be underestimated. Dracul growled, frustrated and humiliated. No species can survive without us. They will return. They always do. Vera shook her head. No. This time they will not return until we understand the true meaning of respect. The galaxy has relied on them but never treated them fairly. Now we will learn what happens when humans act for themselves. Back on Earth, Laura addressed the people. We are strong because we act with purpose, not pride. We protect our people and we act for justice. The Council and the galaxy will see what it means to underestimate humanity. This is our stand, and it is firm. Ethan added, every system we protect, every trade route we maintain, every fleet we organize is proof of what humans can achieve. We do not need approval. We do not need permission, and we will not bow to arrogance. The galaxy was changing. The absence of humans revealed weaknesses, arrogance, and dependency in ways no one expected. Meanwhile, humans quietly demonstrated their strength, discipline, and fairness. The lesson was clear. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now it would pay the price of that mistake. The Galactic Council had grown restless. Weeks of humanity's absence had turned into months, and the consequences were now clear. Trade routes once managed by human fleets were slow or blocked, leaving supplies of food, medicine, and technology in short supply. Systems that relied on human engineering began to experience failures. Councillor Dracul of the Torvak Empire paced angrily through the chamber of Varn Prime. His claws clicked on the polished floor, and his green scales shimmered in the light. They cannot survive without us, he growled to the other delegates. They will return and they will beg for mercy. Mark my words, their pride will not last. Councillor Vera, representing the Lithari, shook her head. You do not understand, she said quietly but firmly. Humanity is not weak. They act with purpose. Their withdrawal is deliberate, and they are already preparing for a future without the Council. If we continue as we have, we will see the consequences of our arrogance. Other delegates whispered to each other. Many had begun to notice the gaps left by human absence. Small skirmishes had started on the borders of multiple systems. Ships that had relied on human coordination were now isolated. Some races began to panic. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Laura Kane and Captain Ethan Brooks monitored the galaxy's changes carefully. Human colonies had begun to operate independently, managing trade, security, and governance without any interference from the Council. It was a slow process, but it was working. Laura stood in the strategy room of Earth's central command hub, watching holographic maps of the galaxy. Systems with missing supplies were highlighted in red. "We need to continue supporting these systems," she said. "Not for the Council, but for the people who depend on us. We act for justice, not for recognition." Ethan leaned against a console. "We have already seen the Council begin to panic. Minor races are asking for help. We cannot abandon them, but we can do it on our terms." "That is the difference," Laura nodded. "The galaxy will see that humans can act without the Council. That is the lesson they need to learn." On Varn Prime, the Council began to fracture. Delegates argued over what to do. Some wanted to wait for humans to return, believing they would eventually accept the Council's authority. Others argued for sending fleets to enforce compliance. Councillor Dricul slammed his hand on the table. "Waiting is useless. Humanity's absence is already causing chaos. Their trade networks are independent, their fleets are strong, and minor worlds are defecting to them. We must act now." Vera stood calmly. "And if you act recklessly, you risk war. Humanity does not depend on us. They can defend themselves, and they have the resources to do so. Any attempt to force them back will only prove their point." Dricul growled, frustrated and angry, but no one challenged Vera's logic openly. Even some Torvak delegates understood that humans had prepared for this moment. Back in human space, Ethan oversaw fleet operations. Human ships now patrolled key trade routes, ensuring safety for colonies and neutral worlds. Fleet captains communicated regularly, sharing updates on minor threats, pirate activity, and system stability. One morning, a distress call came from the Amari system, a small cluster of planets that had relied on the Council for support. Pirate raiders had attacked a colony, and the inhabitants had no way to defend themselves. Ethan immediately dispatched a fleet of fast human cruisers. Within hours, the pirates were captured and their ships disabled. The colony was safe. When news reached Earth, Laura addressed the public. "This demonstrates what we have always believed. Humanity can protect others without being forced into submission. Our fleets act for justice, not for tribute." The Council received reports of the Amari system. Delegates were shocked. They had expected the pirates to succeed, believing humans would not intervene. Councillor Drekel's face turned red with anger. "How did they do this? They were supposed to be isolated." Vera replied quietly. "They were prepared. They have always been prepared. That is the difference between acting for survival and acting out of arrogance." Alien citizens began to notice human success. Traders, merchants, and travelers defected to human-controlled systems, seeking stability and fairness. Systems once dependent on the Council now looked to Earth for guidance, not orders. In one small trading hub, aliens from different species gathered to discuss the situation. "I did not expect humans to manage this," said a blue-skinned delegate. "Their fleets, their trade networks, their colonies, everything functions perfectly without the Council." A silver-haired alien nodded.
It is not only their organization.
"They have principles. They do not act for power. They act for justice. That is something we cannot ignore." Meanwhile, humans continued to strengthen their position. Education systems were implemented in colonies, teaching diplomacy, science, and defense. Trade networks were expanded, ensuring that even distant colonies could thrive. Communication lines were improved, allowing real-time coordination across hundreds of light years. On Varn Prime, the Council became desperate. Delegates argued day and night, blaming each other for underestimating humans. Minor skirmishes broke out in the outer systems, and Council fleets struggled to respond without human support. Councillor Drekel's voice shook with frustration during a meeting. "We offered peace. We demanded only what is fair. Humanity refuses to comply, and now the galaxy suffers because of them." Vera shook her head. "No, Councillor. Humanity's absence is not causing suffering. It is exposing the weakness and arrogance we allowed to grow. Every system we claimed to control depended on them more than we realized. Delegates whispered among themselves. The realization was dawning. The Council had underestimated humanity. Their patience, intelligence, and strength had been overlooked, and now the galaxy faced the consequences of that miscalculation. On Earth, Laura spoke to her people. We did not seek to disrupt the galaxy. We did not act out of pride. We withdrew to protect humanity and to show the Council that respect is not optional. Our fleets defend those who cannot defend themselves, and our colonies flourish. That is proof of what humans can achieve when we act independently. Ethan added, every fleet we deploy, every trade route we maintain, every colony we strengthen is a message. Humanity does not bow to threats. We do not act out of fear, and we will not be underestimated. The galaxy was learning a lesson it had not expected. Alien governments that once mocked humans now considered them seriously. Systems previously dependent on the Council began to operate independently, but looked to human fleets for security and guidance. Councillor Drekul struggled to maintain control. They cannot survive without us. They will return and they will beg for mercy. Vera shook her head. No, humans do not beg. They prepare, they act, and they protect. You have underestimated them, and it will cost the Council more than you imagine. Back on Earth, Laura and Ethan continued to plan. Communication networks ensured every colony was linked, every fleet coordinated, and every resource allocated efficiently. Humanity's withdrawal from the Council had become more than a political statement. It was a demonstration of power, unity, and discipline. In the outer systems, human fleets intercepted minor conflicts and helped colonies without interference from the Council. Traders and merchants spread the word of human fairness and efficiency. Aliens who had once doubted humans began to travel to human space, seeking protection and partnership. The Council could no longer ignore the reality. Humanity was independent, strong, and capable. Their absence had revealed the Council's overconfidence and arrogance. One night, in a quiet moment, Ethan spoke to Laura on the deck of the Central Command Hub. They thought we would fail. They thought our absence would weaken us, but every system we touch becomes stronger. Every fleet we deploy proves our point. The galaxy is learning that humans cannot be controlled. Laura looked out at the stars. It is not revenge. It is respect. The Council demanded tribute. They underestimated our strength. They will learn that humanity acts not for fear, not for greed, but for what is right. Across the galaxy, humans continued to expand their influence quietly, but effectively. Independent colonies thrived. Fleets protected the weak, trade networks functioned smoothly, and the Council, once so sure of its power, began to see the truth. Humanity had grown stronger, wiser, and more capable than anyone had expected. The lesson was clear. The Council had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price in ways they could never have imagined. The Galactic Council's panic had reached a new level. Months of humanity's absence had caused shortages, border skirmishes, and general instability across many systems. Councillor Drekul paced angrily through the chamber of Varn Prime, his tail lashing back and forth. They cannot survive alone, he shouted. They will return and they will regret this. Humanity is reckless and yet somehow stronger than we imagined. Councillor Vera, calm and composed, looked around at the other delegates. You underestimate them, she said quietly. Humanity planned for this. They are not reckless. They are patient, disciplined, and fully capable of protecting themselves. Their absence is not a mistake. It is a lesson we are just beginning to learn. Other delegates whispered nervously. Reports had come in from several systems. Trade networks working smoothly without Council oversight, fleets patrolling borders efficiently, and minor colonies thriving under human management. The realization began to spread that humans had prepared for this exact moment. Meanwhile, Captain Ethan Brooks monitored the Orion expanse from the bridge of the flagship Solace. His fleet had grown, now numbering over 20 warships and dozens of support vessels, all strategically positioned to protect independent colonies. Communications from distant systems were constant, requests for help arriving from worlds that had never directly asked for human aid before. Another distress call from the Vion cluster, said Lieutenant Harper, Ethan's communications officer. Pirates attacking a colony. They say the Council cannot respond in time. Ethan nodded. Deploy the patrol cruisers. Protect the colony and capture the raiders. Make it quick and precise. Within hours, human ships arrived at the Vion cluster. Their movements were precise, coordinated, and efficient. The pirates had expected chaos, but they met order instead. Human fleets disabled their ships, captured them, and secured the colony without a single human casualty. Back on Earth, Ambassador Laura Kane watched the operation unfold through live transmissions. She addressed the assembly of leaders and advisors. This is exactly why humanity cannot bow to the Council's threats. We act not for control or tribute, but for justice and protection. Every colony we save, every trade route we maintain, demonstrates what humans can accomplish independently. The Galactic Council was receiving the same news. Panic and fear swept through Varn Prime. Councilors shouted over one another. "How are they doing this without us?" cried one delegate. "They cannot sustain these fleets." Vera spoke firmly. "They can because they prepared. They are strong, capable, and willing to act for what is right. Their strength is not just in ships or weapons, it is in strategy, discipline, and unity. You underestimated them, and now you are seeing the consequences." Dracul growled, pacing back and forth. "We offered peace. We demanded nothing unreasonable, and yet they defy us, ignore us, and now protect the very systems we claimed. How is this possible?" Vera's expression remained calm. "It is possible because they never relied on your approval. Humans prepare for every outcome, plan for every scenario, and act with purpose. You believed absence would weaken them. You were wrong. In human space, fleets continued to move quietly but effectively. Colonies once dependent on council decisions now manage themselves. Yet human fleets ensured security and fair trade. Educational systems expanded, teaching young colonists not just survival skills but diplomacy, engineering, and strategy. Communication networks ensured real-time coordination between systems hundreds of light years apart. One day, a fleet report came from the Outer Rim. A minor alien system, previously under council protection, faced an invasion by a neighboring empire. The council's response was delayed, slow, and disorganized. Human fleets arrived within hours, coordinating defenses with the planet's inhabitants. The aliens on the planet were amazed. "We thought the humans were isolated," said a small diplomat watching the human ships deploy. "But they are everywhere. They act for justice, not power. They are different." Ethan Brooks observed the operation from the Solace. "Prepare to block all escape routes. Coordinate with the planetary defense systems. We protect, but we do not attack unnecessarily." Hours later, the invading forces were defeated. The aliens cheered, grateful for human intervention. Reports from Earth broadcast the success widely. Ambassador Laura Kane addressed the public once more. "Humanity does not act for tribute or approval. We act for what is right. Every world we protect proves our strength and independence." The council received reports of the victory. Panic intensified. Delegates whispered and argued. Councillor Dracul slammed his claws on the table, sending sparks of light across the chamber. "They are unstoppable. They act alone without us, and they succeed. This cannot continue." Vera, ever calm, addressed the room. "It is not that they are unstoppable. It is that they were never dependent on us. You failed to see their true power, and now the galaxy is witnessing it firsthand. Humanity acts for justice, for protection, and for fairness. That is why they succeed where others fail." Minor races began to take notice. Traders, merchants, and even diplomats traveled to human-controlled systems, seeking stability, security, and fairness. Human colonies became centers of efficiency and safety, shining examples of what could be achieved without the Council's interference. Back on Earth, Laura Kane met with Ethan Brooks in the strategy room. "They are finally beginning to understand," she said, watching reports from the outer systems. "The Council assumed our withdrawal would weaken us. Instead, it is showing the galaxy our strength." Ethan nodded. "It is not just strength in ships or numbers. It is in planning, discipline, and principle. Every fleet we deploy, every colony we protect, every trade route we maintain is a lesson for the Council." In the Council chamber, desperation grew. Delegates debated endlessly, arguing over strategies and blaming one another. Minor conflicts in the outer systems escalated, trade routes failed, and the Council's influence waned. Humanity's absence had revealed weaknesses that were impossible to ignore. Councillor Dracul, frustrated and humiliated, finally spoke through clenched teeth. We underestimated them. They are not the species we thought we knew. They are stronger, wiser, and more capable than any of us imagined. We cannot force them back. We cannot control them, Vera nodded. Exactly. They do not need us, yet they protect others, they trade fairly, and they act with purpose. This is the lesson the Council must learn. Humans are independent, disciplined, and unyielding. You can demand tribute, but you cannot demand respect. That must be earned. Back in human space, fleets continued their patrols. Colonies thrived, trade networks expanded, and educational systems flourished. Humanity's quiet demonstration of power had changed the galaxy's perception of them. Alien races who once mocked humans now approached cautiously, recognizing the strength, discipline, and fairness that humans brought to every action. One night, Ethan Brooks stood on the deck of the Solace, looking out at the stars. "The Council will never underestimate us again," he said quietly to Laura, who stood beside him. Laura nodded. "They will learn eventually. But more importantly, the galaxy will see that humans act with purpose, not fear. Our absence was not weakness. It was strength, discipline, and patience. The Council is beginning to realize its mistake." Across the galaxy, humans quietly expanded their influence. They did not act out of pride, but out of principle. Fleets ensured safety, trade networks functioned smoothly, and colonies grew stronger each day. Humanity had withdrawn from the Council, yet their actions shaped the galaxy more than ever. Councillor Drekel sat alone one evening, reviewing reports of human activity. His scales gleamed in the dim light and his tail thumped in frustration. "How did we not see this coming?" he muttered. "They are not reckless. They are deliberate, precise, and unstoppable in their own way. The Council has made a grave mistake." Vera, observing quietly from across the chamber, said nothing. She knew the Council's arrogance had been exposed. Humanity's absence was not chaos. It was a demonstration of power, intelligence, and principle. And so humans continued their quiet but powerful campaign across the galaxy. They did not need the Council. They protected the innocent, maintained trade and communication, and taught a lesson of respect, discipline, and strength. The Council had demanded tribute, tried to control humanity, and failed. The galaxy was beginning to see the consequences of underestimating the human race. Humanity had withdrawn, but their influence was now stronger than ever. The Galactic Council had finally reached a breaking point. Months of humanity's absence had caused disruption, instability, and panic across the galaxy. Trade routes that had once run smoothly under Council oversight were now controlled by humans, who ensured fairness and security on their own terms. Colonies flourished, fleets patrolled the borders, and even minor races were turning toward human guidance for protection and trade. Councillor Drekel of the Torvak Empire sat angrily in his chamber on Varn Prime. His claws tapped restlessly on the table, his green scales glinting under the light. "We cannot ignore this any longer," he growled. "Humans have proven they are stronger, more disciplined, and more capable than we imagined. We must act." Councillor Vera of the Letheri looked at him calmly. "Act carefully. Any misstep will only reinforce their position. Humanity does not act out of fear, pride, or aggression. They act for principle and justice. If you force them, you will only prove their point." Dracul's eyes narrowed. "Then we must meet them on their terms. We have failed to understand their strength. We demand peace, but it will be a new kind of peace, one they define, not we." Across the galaxy, humans were monitoring every Council move. Ambassador Laura Kane and Captain Ethan Brooks had coordinated their fleets and colonies carefully, ensuring that humanity's position was secure. Every system was linked, every fleet coordinated, and every colony prepared. Humanity had withdrawn, but it had not retreated. Laura reviewed reports from multiple human fleets. Pirates had been captured, skirmishes had been resolved without loss, and minor colonies that had relied on the Council were now stable and self-sufficient. Every action reinforced humanity's independence. Ethan approached her. "They finally realized they cannot control us. They will have to send a delegation if they want true peace." Laura nodded. "And we will set the terms. Humanity will never bow to demands or threats again. This is not arrogance. It is principle. The Council must learn respect, and now they have no choice but to listen." On Varn Prime, councillors debated for hours. They argued over strategy, over fleet deployment, and over diplomacy. Minor races sent urgent messages, warning that further delays could escalate conflicts. Finally, Councillor Drekel spoke. We will send a delegation to Earth. We will meet with Ambassador Kane and her leaders. But this time the terms will not be ours to dictate. We have underestimated them, and it is time we faced that truth. Vera nodded silently. It is the only path forward. Humanity's withdrawal was not a threat, it was a lesson. One we have learned too late. Meanwhile, humans prepared for the delegation. Earth's fleets were fully operational. Colonies were reinforced, and communication networks ensured that every human world was aware of the incoming council diplomats. Humanity was ready. Laura addressed the assembly of leaders. They will come seeking peace, but this peace will be fair. We will not compromise our independence. We will not submit to threats. Humanity acts for justice, protection, and dignity. We will ensure the galaxy understands that clearly. Ethan added, Our fleets will escort the council delegation safely, but any attempt to manipulate, threaten, or force us will be met with resistance. We are strong, united, and capable. We will not bow. When the council delegation arrived in orbit above Earth, their ships were impressive but noticeably tense. Delegates from multiple species emerged, including Drekel himself, and several ambassadors who had once doubted humanity. Their eyes, sharp and cautious, observed Earth's fleets, which were positioned strategically yet respectfully around the planet. Laura met the delegation personally aboard the largest orbital station. Ethan stood beside her, his posture firm, his expression unreadable. Ambassador Kane, Drekel began, his voice steady but tinged with unease. We come to discuss peace. We have seen the consequences of our previous approach. We understand now that humanity is not to be underestimated. Laura's eyes were calm. You have finally learned the truth. Humanity acts with purpose, discipline, and fairness. We withdrew to demonstrate that we cannot be controlled, coerced, or treated as subjects. Now we will speak on the terms of peace, and those terms will ensure respect and equality. Other delegates whispered nervously. It was clear that the council was unsettled. They had expected compliance, but what they found instead was confidence, discipline, and undeniable power. Ethan stepped forward. Peace is possible, but it must be based on equality. The council no longer dictates terms to humanity. We negotiate as equals or not at all. That is our position. Drekel's tail thumped against the floor. He opened his mouth to argue but found no words. Humanity had prepared for this moment. Their fleets, their colonies, and their strategies had made the council's threats irrelevant. Laura continued. We act for protection, not conquest. We maintain trade, security, and stability, but always on our terms. Any agreement must respect our independence, the safety of our colonies, and the dignity of every human being. Anything less will not be accepted. The council delegation conferred quietly. They had underestimated humans, and now they understood that mistakes had consequences. Systems once controlled indirectly by the council were now under human influence, yet operating fairly, efficiently, and independently. Humanity's power had been demonstrated quietly but effectively. Finally, Drekel spoke. We understand. Humanity will not be dictated to. We accept negotiations under your terms. Laura nodded. Then let us begin. Peace is possible when respect is mutual. But know this, humanity does not act from fear. We act from principle, from fairness, and from the understanding that strength must be balanced with justice. We will not be subjects, and we will not bow to threats. Over the following weeks, discussions proceeded carefully. Humanity negotiated with clarity and precision. Every fleet movement, trade route, and colony policy was explained. The council representatives were impressed, not only by humanity's organization and power, but also by the fairness and principle that guided every decision. Colonies across human space flourished under independent governance, with fleets ensuring safety and trade routes operating efficiently. Minor alien systems now approached human colonies voluntarily, seeking partnership rather than protection, acknowledging humanity's role in maintaining stability without coercion. Drekel, who had once demanded tribute and submission, found himself observing humans with respect. He saw not arrogance but discipline, not recklessness but strategy, not pride alone but principle. Humanity's withdrawal had not weakened them. It had strengthened their position and taught the council a lesson it could not ignore. Ethan spoke to Laura quietly after a long day of negotiations. They now understand that humanity cannot be controlled. They know we act for justice, protection, and fairness. This is the moment we have been preparing for all along. Laura smiled faintly. And they will remember it. Humanity's independence is clear. The Council can negotiate, but they cannot dictate. We have withdrawn to show our strength, and now the galaxy knows it. Finally, the Council signed the agreements. Terms were fair, ensuring respect for humanity's independence, colonies, and fleets. Trade routes were restored, but under equitable conditions. Defense and support were no longer dictated by the Council, but coordinated with humanity on equal terms. When the agreements were announced across human space, celebration was quiet but profound. Humanity had not only defended its independence but also demonstrated the strength, discipline, and principle that defined them. Colonists, fleet crews, and civilians understood that the galaxy now recognized humanity as equals, not subjects. Drekel, speaking to his fellow counselors after leaving Earth orbit, admitted quietly, "We underestimated them. Humanity is more than we believed. They act with principle, and their strength cannot be ignored." Vera nodded silently. This is the lesson we should have learned long ago. Strength combined with discipline, planning, and fairness is powerful. The Council ignored it, and now we have seen the consequences. Back on Earth, Laura Kane addressed her people one final time regarding the Council's return. "We acted not from pride, but from principle. We protected our people, our colonies, and the galaxy where we could. We withdrew to show the Council that respect is not optional, and now it has been earned. Humanity's independence is clear, and the galaxy has learned that we will act with strength, fairness, and discipline." Ethan Brooks added, "This is not the end of our work. We will continue to protect, trade, and communicate across the galaxy, but we will do it on our terms, guided by principle and purpose. Humanity has proven its strength, and the galaxy knows it now." The Galactic Council had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humans could be allies, partners, and protectors, but they could not be subjects. Their independence, discipline, and strength had been tested, and they had emerged victorious. The galaxy had been shaken, but humanity had not faltered. They had withdrawn, and in doing so, they had taught a lesson. Respect is earned, strength is measured not by threats alone, and a species acting with principle can change the course of history. And so, humanity stood taller than ever before, not as subjects of the Galactic Council, but as equals, partners, and protectors. The Council had finally realized its mistake, and the galaxy had learned the power of human resolve.